I'd like to introduce two people today. Dr. Liliana Davalos, who is a professor in the Department of Ecology and Evolution, who will discuss how environmental problems and conflicts have roots in global social processes such as culture, community, and political and economic inequality. And I'd like to introduce Ujjwala Dar, who's on my student advisory council and is also a first-year Globalization Studies and International Relations major. So at this time, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Dr. Davalos, who will say a few words about the globalization studies. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. It's good to see one of my students is here too. And she'll be talking about the globalization major. So when we look at a scene like this, depending on where you're coming from, you may be thinking different things. You may be looking at this and you may be thinking, well, that's a really crowded moment, right? Or you may actually be hardened and think, look, there's activism going on. There's people coming together to do something about a global problem, climate change, that surpasses the purview of any one government or any one region, and it has in fact transformed the world. Precisely this kind of conundrums between, the view that the planet is kind of at some kind of breaking point, and the view that people coming together can actually solve these problems. That's what motivates us in our globalization course, because we know that these vast environmental problems do not have a simple biological solution. They cannot exist in isolation from human beings, from political processes, from economic processes. So when we look at this is from the March, this is from a 2014 March against climate change that brought together very, very diverse groups of students, academics, scholars, and activists to the streets of the world, millions of people around the world saying, we want our voice heard, we want something done about climate change. Now, fast forward to the present, and for the first time, we have, over the last 10 years, plummeting costs of energy have made it possible for the energy transition to happen worldwide. So much so that in places like India, coal plants are being abandoned. Plans, multi-million-dollar plans for making coal power plants are being abandoned, not because they want to do good for the planet, but because it's a lot cheaper to get energy some other way. So we're standing in the middle of this transition. What are we going to do to understand it? That's what's brought us together into this globalization course. Go to the next slide. The transformations that we're living with, the world that we're living in, including the COVID-19 pandemic, are all parts of this global environmental change. If you are familiar with Long Island, this view is actually familiar to you and throughout New York State. Why? Because a lot of species are endangered, and they have been endangered because of the transformation of habitats and the transformation, including climate change, that is happening around the world. And again, the flip side of that is that people have come together through legislation at the state level, at the national level, and even at the international level to protect migratory birds and migratory, for example, whale species are protected internationally. Again, this shows us that there are these two sides, right? These human-made problems have human-made solutions that we're trying to get to. There's another site from Long Island. In the southern shore of Long Island, there's what we call a dead zone. And a dead zone happens when there are so many nutrients that are coming off the water that there is an overgrowth of algae. In this case, it's called a rust tide. This overgrowth takes up all the oxygen in the water, effectively pushing, killing everything that's in it. So the solutions to the pollution that is happening on Long Island are also in human hands and in the transformation of the agricultural and the actual suburban system of the very region that we exist in. This is perhaps the number one motivation, this image here, for studying globalization and the process of globalization, and it's climate change, because it's front of us right now. So a lot of people are talking in places like Texas right now, they're having 0 Fahrenheit, they're hitting temperatures of 0 that they hadn't had. It's colder than it's been in a long time. The same thing is happening in places like Germany. It's colder than it's been in many years. Thinking about that change, that cold that different parts of the country and of the world are experiencing, we might say to ourselves, well, climate change isn't really here. Global warming isn't really here because it's not these places have become really cold this year, right? But what's actually happening is that the mass of cold air on top of the Arctic has become so warm that the cold of the Arctic has been pushed down. There's a weakening of the currents in the Atlantic Ocean that is making this weakening of the jet stream, makes it so that mass of cold air has now come down, creating this polar vortex. So we're actually experiencing extreme cold temperatures in some places of the world right now, but it is precisely because of climate change, precisely because of global warming. Now, because climate change is such a vast transformation of our atmosphere, no single country holds the key, no single community holds the key to turning back or to arresting the changes that are coming with climate change. And no single country can in isolation cope with it, which is why we have to think about what are these global networks, what is the global system right now that has led us to this place, and how can it change going forward. So this is another area that we talk about in our group. So this is one of my favorites, and it's perhaps less well known. And it's, in fact, well, not for humans, but for animals. And it's emergent infectious diseases. In 2006, people who went into the caves to look for bats discovered that the bats were all on the ground and had died. And they had this little powdery noses. And it was because of a fungus that somebody inadvertently brought in their boots. We have clear records around the world that infectious diseases, including the pandemic that is affecting all of us right now, have been increasing. The frequency with which infectious diseases affect animals, including ourselves, and plants has actually been increasing. And it is through that increased globalization, through that increased travel, that some of those risks are increasing around the world. So how do we deal with those going forward? Where are the risks? Can something be done about them? We are learning about that in our globalization course. So the end of the, just to close off and then leave more time, the bottom line is that we live in a single planet, right? We may experience local changes like we do in Long Island, or like having a cold period for a while, or like the situation of the rust tides, but the changes are completely global, and they have taken on that dimension, and they cannot be independent. There's no single engineering solution. There's no single biological solution. They have to include the perspective of the social sciences and the humanities, which is why I'm part of the globalization major, and I'm part of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Davalos. Let me pause for 10 seconds to see if there are any questions from the audience about that mini lecture. And just to put that in context, that was a short snippet, I believe, from your lecture that you give in the GLI course. Is that right?
Oh, in the GLI course, the students do the work.
Well, that's a good lead-in.
Ujjwala can speak to that, actually. The students get to do the work. I just get to stand back and let them do the work.
So Ujjwala, maybe you would like to say a few words about the Globalization Studies major.
Yeah, I'd love to. Hi, everyone. I'm Ujjwala, and I'm a freshman in the Globalization Studies and International Relations major, and I'm really excited to talk to everyone today. First of all, I'd just like to say congratulations for getting accepted to Stony Brook University. It's a really great achievement, and I'm really glad you're here today. So I'm just here to talk about the new major as one of the students here and answer any questions you may have. So I just wanted to, start off with why I think you should be considering Stony Brook and, this program. I think the best part about Stony Brook is the sheer amount of opportunities you have. Even if you're participating in the Globalization Studies major, you still have such a diverse range of opportunities that you can take advantage of between, opportunities for scientific research, the clubs, art, and more. You will find something that you're passionate about being cultivated at Stony Brook. And if there's something that's going beyond that, you have the chance to cultivate that yourself. And there are really no restrictions here that you can find. And I think that introducing the Globalization Studies has really just broadened Stony Brook's horizon even more. And I think that introducing this major is really opening up a lot of doors for its students and for the university as a whole. Some opportunities that I'm taking a part of are clubs such as the Young Investigators Review, where I'm combining art and science to help scientific literacy through a research journal. I'm also on the Dean Student Council Advisory, where I not only get a chance to voice my opinion and advocate for other students, but also to learn more about the way the school works. And from participating on that council, I've learned that not only does the faculty really care about their students and listening to them, but that they're really making an effort to go above and beyond when it comes to caring for their students, and they're making sure they're not being neglected, especially in such difficult times. And so one question that I really want to address is why you should consider Stony Brook, even though it has a very STEM-based reputation, for a major within the College of Arts and Sciences. So I know that when we think of Stony Brook, we often think about a lot of biology and pre-med students, but I just want to go out and say that there is a lot more that Stony Brook has to offer than just, I guess, the biology programs and the computer science programs. Although they are amazing programs, what I really appreciate about Stony Brook is that they have a diverse range of opportunities and things that you can accomplish here. And that's what I really love specifically about the globalization program, is that you get to choose the pathway that you're on. Although I am a pre-med student, I chose the globalization program as my major because I know it's going to give me such a strong foundation for understanding, the way the world works, and I guess like the necessary knowledge we need to really thrive in this world. What I think a lot of the times, what we forget is that things like medicine, computer science, biology, all these things, they're very important on an essential level, but they need to be supplemented by programs such as Globalization Studies, because you can know, if you want to study something for medicine example, you need to know the biology, but you also need to understand the way that people live their lives and the choices that they make in the world that they're born into. The reason that I chose the Globalization Studies program is because I realized how essential it is to understand our environment and the current world we're living in to really make an impact. If you don't know anything about your society, it's very difficult to contribute to it in a meaningful way. So I think that the Globalization Studies program is an essential building block of really every person's education. And I think that without it, you're actually really missing out on a lot of, I guess, opportunities and real world knowledge. One thing that I really love about the program is how flexible it is and how you can really choose what you want to learn about. So the way the program works is that you can choose a language course of study, a course of study in like a certain area, and then another area of study regarding something like culture or economics, markets, something like that. So that really means you get to choose what you learn about, which is really a unique aspect of a major, which you don't often get. It's very unique in a sense that there's a lot of flexibility. And if you look at the online undergraduate bulletin, you can search for that online and see what courses qualify for the major, but you can actually go beyond that and talk to an advisor and see what other courses you want to take that you think are applicable to what you want to learn about, and actually get those courses added on to the major if it gets approved. I know someone who was an anthropology major who's transferred to the Globalization Studies program and got a lot of the anthropology courses she previously took approved because, like I said before, this major is really flexible in what you get to learn. And I also think that it's really cool that you get to choose the language that you take. Right now I'm taking Russian and I'm trying to learn that. I'm not very good at it, but I really am trying my best. And I just love telling people that, hey, I'm learning Russian because it's just really unexpected. And I love that even though I'm going in to be a pre-med student, I still get to learn things that are interesting and that I care about. And I just wanted to, make sure that everyone here knows that no matter what pathway you're taking in the future, the globalization studies will apply to that. It is such fundamental and real world knowledge and that I think everyone should really just get a glimpse of it. And I guess I just also want to talk about the classes in themselves. So the first class that you'll be taking is the Globalization 211, where you basically learn what globalization is and also how to learn about it. That's what I think was really interesting about that course. Was it wasn't really just about facts, but it was about how to take in facts and how to understand them. And the course that I'm taking right now with Professor Davalos, we're learning a lot about the environment and globalization in terms of climate change and things like that. And what I realized in both of these classes is that there's a lot of freedom to choose what you want to learn about and what you want to write about. When it comes to projects, we've always had the chance to do what we're interested in, and we've never been confined by certain guidelines or really tight restrictions. If we want to learn about something, we can. And that's what I think is so amazing about this major, is that you get the true opportunity to learn, not to just memorize facts and throw them back, but to truly learn about the world that you're living in and the world that you want to create. So hopefully I didn't ramble on for too long, and I'll love to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you so much, Ujjwala. We've actually been getting a lot of questions while you were talking that I've done my best to answer, but maybe I could recap and direct people. I put the link in the Q&A box to the webpage for the major so that you could get a sense of this. And one of the points that Ujjwala was making, let me just make it a little more concrete in terms of how the major works, because many of the questions that coming in have been, how does this compare to just an international relations? How intertwined is it with political science? And the way this major works, there are core courses, and those are the courses that Ujjwala was speaking about. And then really the student can choose to focus in a different region of the world and a different type of functionalization. And those courses are drawn from existing programs, existing departments and majors. And that's where, designing exactly what you study and what direction you go is up to the student. And so you can focus more on the political, more on the economic, more on the environmental, depending on what courses and what department courses you draw from. And then there are always the electives. And one of the components of any major at Stony Brook is the general education requirements, which give you a broad base across all different disciplinary areas in the university. I'm just checking questions. So Ryan, you're unmuted. Were you going to say something?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, welcome everybody. My name is Ryan Donnelly. I'm from the admissions office, and I want to thank everyone, our panelists here too. We had a lot of good input, and I think you could realize that the major here is a perfect major for the future, because there's so many complex problems that we do have going on right now, that we need people who are well educated in sort of everything to sort of understand, and everything's on a global level now. It's not just about us on Long Island. It's not just about us in the United States, but it's about everybody on this planet, from environmental to social issues. So it's a great major, liberal arts major, and it gives you a strong background so that you do have a lot of options. And I'm speaking in terms of what I hear from parents and from students and, careers and those types of things. One of the things that came up, one of the questions that came up was about research and doing, getting involved in research on this level. And I know this major is new. Can any of you elaborate on any kind of the research opportunities?
Liliana, would you like to take that, or would you like me to take that? Or
I think you can go ahead, and I'll add anything.
All right, so research is always an option regardless of major. So I think all of our majors have the opportunity for experiential learning. whether it be through internships or study abroad, or working with a faculty member such as Professor Davalos to work in their laboratory. There are summer programs that help fund students to do that research. We have something called Eureka, which gives stipends to students. Typically, they use that to help them pay some of their living expenses over the summer. And in addition, we have a fellowship program for students to go off and design their own research, not totally credit bearing, but thanks to the generosity of an alum of the university, Edward Giuliano. We have the Giuliano fellowships, which are really to go explore. The rules of the fellowship are to do something more than 200 miles away from the university or from home. So to go out and see part of the world, whether it's a short trip or a longer trip. Liliana, would you like to add something?
I would just like to add that as a very vibrant research community, there's always opportunities that, besides the kind of funding avenues that the dean just outlined, individual labs also recruit, because we have something called Research Experience for Undergraduates. That's funding from the federal government, the National Science Foundation. For example, at my lab, we're contemplating recruiting a couple of undergraduate students for the coming summer, because we have the ability to do, through this globalization ideas, we actually can use remote sensing to the projects. A lot of the kind of work that I do often requires hands-on, and people can't travel, right? Or traveling to some far-flung site that we can't do anymore. So there are opportunities, but mine is just one lab. There are dozens of other labs that have. So if you want to make a little bit like what Ujala was saying, that there is this kind of Lego quality that you can actually kind of build your own story of where you want to go. With research, it's the same. You can approach different labs depending on what they're doing. And just, like the reality is that a pair of hands with the motivation and the energy of undergrads is something that lots and lots of labs can do with.
And let me just add on to that, because there have now been a couple of questions about biology degrees and how you could combine that with globalization studies. And so one of the probably best ways to do that is to get the BA in biology. It's a very rigorous degree, but one of the requirements of that BA is that you have a minor in the College of Arts and Sciences. So the minor in globalization studies is a great way to combine what Ujala and Professor Davalos have been talking about, this cross-cutting disciplinary experience. Bring that in combination with the degree in biology will get you all of the pre-med requirements in order to go to medical school. And then you become a pretty well-rounded individual by the time you've completed all of that. So I think that's the way to do it. What is in the BS in biology that's not in the BA in biology? It's a few less laboratory requirements for the most part. So that opens up time to do other types of experiential learning. For example, if you were going to go volunteer in a hospital or something like that. So I have a question: can psychology majors take the globalization program? And I'm going to say no, because both are a major. So, but I'm also going to say yes. So typically students choose one major. So your advisor would say, do you want to be a psychology major or do you want to be a globalization studies major? There is always the possibility to be a double major, but you have to be very focused and have very good time management skills to earn enough credits for two different majors within 4 years. So it is possible, but it's not the norm to go after earning 2 bachelor's degrees in 4 years.
I have a question for Ujala. You did a great job, by the way. You pinpointed everything that students typically ask. So, you did a really awesome job. So thank you. So students are, and you can tell because students are actually very interested in how you balance your, first, there was one, the first question was how you balance your pre-med classes with your major. And then how do you balance, there's so many questions coming in. How do you balance your, right here, I think it was, how do you balance your social life with your heavy course load too? And then how do you balance your pre-med courses along with the major as well?
So to speak a little bit about the pre-med requirements and the major as well, one of the reasons I also chose the globalization major was because it gave you room to grow. Because it is a 45 credit major, that means you do have room for electives, which you can use for your pre-med requirements. So even though you're taking on this really great major, which you can learn a lot from, you also have the opportunity to take those pre-med requirements without completely overwhelming yourself. And another reason I would say if you're pre-med to really, or whatever course you're taking on, to really take a look at this major, because if you're going to keep studying in the next years, especially if you're going for a really science-based route, it's such as a pre-med route, it's really great to have these couple of years where you take a different perspective and you look at the world in a different light, so that when you are taking on those really heavy medical school courses, you know a lot about the world, and that you can like take it on, if that makes any sense. So yeah, you do have room to take the pre-med requirements within this major without completely, destroying yourself. And when it comes to things like social life and balancing, I guess 2 different pathways. The thing is, when you take classes that you really enjoy and you're not miserable in, it's not that difficult, I guess. When you are taking courses that you hate, it's going to kind of take a toll on you in every single aspect of your life. So even though I am taking a heavier course load, I really do enjoy all of my classes, the Globalization Studies ones and the pre-med ones. So because of that, I don't feel like I'm constantly stressed out and that I hate what I'm doing, because I really do like it. And I think that if you're able to find a major which you enjoy and a pathway that you enjoy, then the pieces kind of fall into place a little bit better. And you don't have to, I guess, worry so much about finding the balance, because you are more content with what you're doing.
That's great advice, I would say. Do something that you're passionate about and that makes you happy, and it will all be easier. And I want to just call out, Ujala answered a question in the chat box, but I think it's really important to note, the MCAT, that's a long way off for a lot of you, but that's the standardized test for entry into medical school. It does have a focus on sociology and psychology, in addition to biochemistry and calculus and chemistry. And so taking those courses is almost a requirement of being it is a requirement of being a pre-med at this point, along with ethics and philosophy. So this is a good way to pull that all together. Let me introduce somebody who was able to join us, Professor Reynard. Sophie Reynard is on the screen now, and she's actually the director of the Institute for Globalization Studies, which houses the Globalization Studies major. So Sophie, I don't know if you want to say a few words. We've heard a lot of great stuff from Liliana Davalos and Ujala Dar here about the major, but go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Dean Sampson. It's a pleasure for me to impromptu interject and say how pleased I am to hear the firsthand experience of both GLI faculty with Professor Davalos and students with our, pioneer students from the first cohort from last fall and this spring, Ujala. So it's great to start collecting the fruit of my hard labor by hearing exactly what this degree was meant to be or is meant to be and represent. And so I really appreciate this very specific example, especially the ones that Ujala shared with you on how she navigates this degree, and she's making the most of it. So thank you very much. And I encourage all the listeners here, the parents and the students to keep asking questions, or to I'll put our info on the chat, but to please come and visit us on the website of the Institute for Globalization Studies, and we'll answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ryan, you're going to say something, so I'll let you.
Oh, it's just there was a couple more questions, but I didn't want to interrupt you. I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, great minds think alike. I was just going to ask Ujala, why did you choose Stony Brook?
Right, I was typing the response. It was perfect to say it. So the reason that I chose Stony Brook is because of the range of opportunities I would have. The thing about Stony Brook is that it is a larger school. And on one hand, a large school means that you have a lot of opportunities that are really diverse. But because of that, I was also kind of worried that maybe I would get lost in that and I wouldn't really be able to like find my place or find what I was interested in, because it is like a large school and a large campus. However, I really haven't had that issue, because I am here today. I have found my path even within a large university, and that's the reason I really came here, to have a lot of things to choose from, but still be able to find my place here. And that's what I think is really great about Stony Brook, is that you can pick and choose, you can try, and that you never have to narrow yourself down to just one thing. And that you have a lot of opportunities to try different things out. I never played chess before I came to Stony Brook, but now it's something that I really enjoy playing. And I've also joined things like the investment club, and I've gained an interest in economics, which is kind of odd for me because it's not something I really thought about before coming here. But it's just because I have so many choices that I feel very empowered and free within this school, and I've never felt confined. So that's why I chose Stony Brook.
Great, thank you. And we had a question about study abroad. I pasted the link to all of the programs because there's so many different universities that have exchange programs set up. I think there's Antarctica may be the only continent that's not represented here, but many different countries, Europe, Africa, Korea, China. One of the great things about Stony Brook is we help run a couple of field stations, one in Kenya and one in Madagascar, which are great destinations for our students, but those are not the only study abroad opportunities. There are many other exchange programs that are set up. So I'll let you peruse that webpage, and if you have further questions, feel free to come back into the Q&A and ask some follow-up.
There was one question actually, and forgive me if it was answered already. And I've been paying close attention, but maybe a little bit more on the concentration within the major, like the concentration areas. That if you could just kind of go over that again, like the student was asking, when would they pick that, and then I guess of what concentration areas are available.
Would you like to explain that, Sophie, since you're the expert at this major?
Yes. So you can pretty much declare it at any time. You sit with the undergraduate director, and we have a checklist. So while you're taking those 5 core courses, the GLI core courses, you have a long list of electives to choose from. And it's really with your advisor that you decide which specialty within GLI you want to focus on. And they will advise you a certain, categories of courses. So what is very special about GLI is that it's almost a custom-made type of degree for each student. So it is a big difference from the other degrees in that sense.
Right. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, the decision making is what global interaction area of the world, as well as what specialized globalization issues. So it could be on human, cultural, and biological migration, could be on global development, sustainability, environment, and well-being, i.e. more public health related issues, cultural and political representation, or on inequalities, or on transnational corporations, or in global cities. So these are sort of the functional areas of decision making. Where's your interest? And earlier we had questions on political science or international relations. So you can see how some of those functional areas tie in with those more tightly than others. And then, are you interested in the Pacific Rim or the transatlantic, the Americas, global Africa, the larger Middle East, the Indian Ocean world, or Eurasia? Those are it's not continent based so much as area of interaction in the world based to focus. But those are still pretty broad categories. Brian.
Yes. We have
a lot of choice within.
6 tracks and 8 global interaction areas to choose from, and your courses are at the intersection of both parameters, and so that's why it becomes very much custom made, because whether you come from engineering or the med school, the classes that you're going to take within your area of expertise in GLI are going to be different.
One of the questions was, is GLI, I mean, I don't know the answer to this, but is GLI a good preparation for like pre-law, like law school, that type of thing? And I just knowing, I'd say definitely yes. But I'll let you guys talk about that.
I can answer very briefly. I would say yes, for any discipline within the humanities, the social and behavioral sciences, the natural sciences, even because of the 6 tracks that are so encompassing that they will touch on the area, for instance, of international law. I'll give you an example. Over the summer, GLI will be offering classes that will qualify as GLI elective, and one of the instructors is an international lawyer, because one course in particular I wanted to be taught by a practitioner to give this good balance between academic and practice, and she'll be teaching a course on human rights and a course on the sustainable developmental goals as stated by the UN. So somebody interested in pursuing law should do very well by taking that class, and then realize that that's precisely the area they want to pursue later on. But GLI gives you a very broad, very strong general basis that prepares you particularly well for an international career.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just know from students asking about pre-law all the time that understanding the big picture is really the key, especially for law school, understanding how things work, big picture, the complex problems and everything else, especially depending upon what kind of law you want to get into. I have a lot of students that want to get into international law and stuff. They'll ask me. So definitely, I think just hearing this would be perfect for that. There was a question early on that I thought was really interesting for Liliana. The student was asking, what type of things to get involved, especially with your expertise with the environment and getting involved. And you had listed some great institutions within Long Island to get involved in the environment. But for students who are looking at like some of these possible new careers in the environment that may be coming out as a result of new policies and stuff, do you see GLI being a good fit for that?
think so, because I think one of the biggest misconceptions about solving some of these environmental problems is that just getting the biology or the engineering is enough. And in reality, you just have to, all of these are human problems, right? So we need to kind of like bring society. So having that broader perspective about how the human system works and how it's a coupled natural and human system, is just not only a natural system and not only a human system, but it's an interaction between the two, is super helpful. There's a number of clubs. There's a natural history club. There's a couple of conservation clubs within the university for people who, so specifically targeted for students, right? And of course, there are some of the institutions that I mentioned in the chat that are more like, if you want to get more broadly involved, for example, there's something called the Citizens Climate Lobby that is specifically, they go and visit representatives and senators to try to push for climate action at the legislative level. So there's several layers through which you can become, involved, depending on how much time you want to devote to it and what kind of outcomes you want to see. Another one that's one of my favorites is CTAC, which is a local Long Island conservation. It's for biodiversity on Long Island. And so they have a series of activities throughout the year. And because these can be socially distanced, they can maintain some of those activities, like, going out to the shore and going out. And that way, if, even during social distance, during COVID times, you can actually get out and be outside looking for biodiversity and looking for active ways to make a change.
I think the next question up, let me push it to Ujjwala. You're probably typing the answer, but let's maybe you can read your notes there about the transition to college, since I know you've made a transition in one of the most difficult of times in a pandemic. We've talked a lot about that on my advisory council of how the university has managed that. And I think we've done a pretty good job. Our incidence on campus is low, but maybe you want to speak to the work in your classes and how you've managed that.
Right, so I see the question is asking, about the transition to college and the expectations of like the assignments and papers. And I'm going to be honest, I haven't struggled too much with the expectations because, there is always, a group of people who is either A, struggling alongside you, or B, totally willing to help you. So it's never like I ever felt alone in the questions that I had. I could always reach out to the people in my class or, my professors. They were always willing to help. And I think a couple of things that I think really helped with the transition was the classes that you have to take as a freshman. So as a freshman, you do have to take introductory writing classes, which teach you how to write the paper so that you're not totally lost in your other assignments. And so you do have a foundation going into Stony Brook. They don't just kind of like throw you out to the wolves. They do help you out and they tell you, this is what's expected of you, and this is how to accomplish that. And another thing about the GLI major specifically is that the first class that I took for the major, which was GLI 211, like I mentioned before, the focus of that class isn't necessarily to teach you about, globalization, is it positive or is it negative? The main focus of the class, the first thing our professor said on that day is that this class is not specifically about globalization. It's about how to learn about globalization. And it's about learning how to read papers and to, accomplish projects and assignments. So it's never like I was just completely lost. There was always, a class, professors, guiding me. And so because of that, I never felt like there was an insane expectation on us, even though we are currently doing online classes and things like that.
So let me just answer, because I know this is often a question I get from parents, answer the question more generally about help resources and advising on campus and how that works. There's a lot of centralized advising. I think that we've also heard, as Ujjwala and Professor Raynar spoke, going on the major advising is very much done with the faculty who are part of the program. At the same time, and we've had a bunch of pre-med questions here, chemistry, I'm a professor of chemistry, so I'm very familiar with how challenging that can be for some students. That the chemistry department and the math department and biology run very big help centers, with undergraduate and graduate TAs, students who have taken these classes to run not just office hours, but opportunities to do reviews for big exams, opportunities to come in and ask questions. And in non-pandemic times, those physical spaces end up being just very good places for people to come together and study together informally in various groups, working through the homework problems where faculty might walk through the room and you might be able to ask them a question just as they walk by. But the university takes very seriously how these large courses can be overwhelming, particularly for freshmen. It puts a lot of resources into the support of students in those classes as well. What is the plan on going back next year? How have online classes been? So our plan is currently, we are planning for a fall 21 in person. Some of our largest classes might continue to be online for various reasons, but the majority will be in person. We are always prepared to roll it back, and knock on wood, we really hope that doesn't happen with some of these new variants. Vaccination in the state is going. We are hopeful, but we won't know. We don't have a crystal ball. That by the end of the summer, many people and all of our instructors will be able to be vaccinated to teach in-person classes, and that's true whether it's K through 12 or at the university level. So that is our plan, but as we have learned over the last year, plans can change frequently, but we have, just to tell you what we're doing on campus, we're testing students twice a week. We do surveillance testing of all faculty and staff who are on campus. And you can look at COVID dashboard on the Stony Brook website. As I mentioned, because we have good social distancing guidelines and students, big shout out to the students, have been very compliant about masking and the like. We have a very low incidence on campus and we will intend to keep it that way. Ryan, are you seeing other questions? I've lost a little bit track here. I've got so many panels scrolling by.
Yes, I'm in the two. They were just asking about we get the link to the concentrations. I didn't see anything else here. Let me just scroll down here. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss anybody. And I'm looking into yours. The plan next year. I'm glad you took that one instead of me. No, I don't see any others. Any other questions that you have, please do so. We got a couple more minutes. I have to say everything was so thorough. Everybody hit on the main things, especially me, because I'm used to getting those questions every day about any major, but you've hit all the spots, the careers, if you could do it, planning on going to med school or some type of graduate school. You've hit the concentration areas. You've also gone over the major in itself in terms of its concentrations and the types of courses. The one great thing I thought that was great that Ujjwala she went over was how difficult in the transition it is. I get that question all the time too, and the classes and how they're run as well. So that's great. Any other questions anybody else has, please, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll mention them. Anything else that you all would like to add in terms of the major?
I think I'd like to add, we focused a lot on knowing what you want to do and having your major lined up as you walk in the door. And I want to emphasize that, one of the benefits of a liberal arts education is that you can be undecided at this point. That's okay. And you can change your mind. You can try something and change. And I mentioned touched on very briefly earlier about the general education requirements. That's, covering everything from making sure that you've got strong skills in writing to a foreign language, calculus, a natural science, something in history. I'm going to forget them all because there's a bunch, but that's a great way to take the pulse of what's out there. And if you're, to Ujjwala's earlier comment, if you're not completely happy what you're doing, try out a few different things and find something that you really like, and that's okay. I think we have this great focus on making sure we know exactly what we want to do and sticking with it. But part of this experience is experiencing and finding where your true passion is. And so I just want to emphasize to those of you who aren't exactly sure of which major, that's normal. And it's normal to change your major a few times. And so but the system is in place to support that and to help keep you on track through that experience and through that decision making. Sophie, did you want to add something to that? Unmute though, unmute. Can you?
Yes, apology for that. I wanted to follow up on something that Ujjwala said about the GLI 221, the first GLI course that she took that is required as a foundation course, because Dean Sampson, as you use this expression, taking the pulse, this is the course that would be the perfect opportunity for anyone who might closely or by far be interested in GLI. It gives you a flavor of what it is that you can find in GLI, and that foundation course will just go through all the different global issues that the degree can expose you to. It's also co-taught. All the GLI courses are co-taught with faculty from two different perspectives. So here you are exposed to all these chances to flavor the different disciplines, the different perspectives, and the different themes. I think by the end of that class, or very quickly during that class, students may have an idea of what it is that they're really interested in within GLI.
Great, thanks. So we just got a late breaking question. Sorry, I'm reading it at the same time I'm trying to talk. Asking about GLI major in the career field compared to international studies. And I just want to say some of our alumni who work in international arena, whether it be in non-governmental organizations or in diplomatic fields, are very enthusiastic about this major. In fact, they came back for a career panel last fall and said, I wish I had taken this major to prepare me for what it is I'm actually doing out in my career. So we have immense interest from our alums in the business world. And, as I mentioned, the governmental job or non-governmental organization world, that this type of cross-cutting education is really valuable for working in those types of organizations. And I don't know, Ujjwala, if you want to say the last word on that panel and what you heard at that panel from 4 of our illustrious alums.
Yeah, I definitely remember that panel. I thought it was great. The main thing that I remember taking away from that is the panelists really emphasized taking the language.
Yes.
You really like nailed that home. And I think that's also like an integral part of the program here is that by taking a language, you're really immersing yourself into other parts of the world, and you're kind of taking it away from just classroom study into an actual understanding of the way people live and the culture they have and how to communicate with others around the world. And so, yeah, I remember the panelists were really, they're really glad to see this major come into fruition, and so am I. I think it's a really great addition to Stony Brook, and I'm really excited about it.
Thanks. Well, with that, I think we should call it a wrap. And I just want to thank all of you for your time. And particularly, I want to give a shout out to the admissions team who put this all together and a lot of behind the scenes work. So thank you, Ryan, and thank you, team. And thank you, Professor Davalos and Professor Raynar. And last of all, Ujjwala, thank you for sharing your experience. It's really been a joy for me to hear the student perspective to this afternoon, evening, whatever time it is and whatever time zone you're in. And I hope it was really helpful for all of the students we have attending today. So thank you and stay safe out there.
All right. My pleasure. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.